Thank you very much, and I'm pleased to be here. And I want to at the outset thank O'Reilly X for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to be here. I should indicate that tomorrow I'll be leaving with my friend from Holland, Dr. Alexander Omaha, to go to Afghanistan to be my third visit to Afghanistan, to be with the troops. And when I go, I autograph my book, talk with the troops. Programs arranged for me. I have an opportunity to talk with the younger troops today about what we learned in World War II. And one of the favorite subjects I have is the subject of leadership in combat, in mortal combat. Leadership is defined at many levels, all the way from the top on down. We have leaders. But leaders in decisive action to determine where a battle is won or lost is the ultimate in the military, and that's combat leadership in the face of heavy enemy fire. And so I talk about that because of the number of engagements I was involved in. One of my previous trips to Afghanistan, I met with a couple of young soldiers. Actually, not only met with them, but up in FOB Salerno, which was on the Pakistani border. They took me with them on a patrol in Humvees. We were going all day along the Pakistani border looking for the bad guys, the Taliban or the Al-Qaeda. And one of them has since retired. The other is still on active duty. But they accompanied us here for this event because they have a very special story, one that I was able to talk about last night. One of them, Master Sergeant Colin Rich, in 2002, when we first went to Afghanistan, was shot through the head by a sniper, and it impaired his vision. He'd been through a number of, went through the medical system, and been at Walter Reed, and his eyesight is quite bad. In fact, today when I was talking to him, I put my hand about this far away from him, he couldn't see my hand. I had a little peripheral vision, and he's here with a seeing eye dog. Interesting thing about this particular sergeant is that he was wounded in 2002, came back to the States, underwent treatment, and then stayed in the Army and went back to Iraq on a tour. And when I was there a year and a half ago in Afghanistan, he was there and went with me on patrol. I'd met him earlier. It's quite a story, really, very inspiring story, certainly for our young troopers today. And while I was there and we were preparing to get in the Humvees and take off on patrol that day, he called over a roommate in his tent, and he called him Gimpy because he lost a leg. And a previous patrol that he'd been on with 82nd Airborne Division, and an ID blew up their Humvee, and a prosthetic leg had returned to the States, but he too stayed in the Army, returned to duty, and there he was in Afghanistan with me. And subsequently he's returned to the States and now is with the Army Golden Knights, and he's parachuting with the Golden Knights. Now, I was quite pleased to have these young fellows along and introduce them last night because they typify the real spirit and the dedication of the young men and women today in the service, about as much as I could indicate to anyone. These guys are both badly wounded, greatly impaired, and to the credit of the 82nd Airborne Division, they still saw them as useful people and had a place for them. And not just in terms of what they're able to do and continue to do, but because of the inspiration that they bring to the young men and women that are out there. And so they're here, and I'm sorry that I didn't bring them along, but in any event, they'll be here the rest of the day. And so I maintain contact with these people, but also in a broader sense, when I go to Afghanistan, I don't go as a VIP, I don't go embedded, I don't go as a reporter, I certainly don't go as a politician or anyone representing the government or anything else. I go as one of the guys, and that's the way they look at me. Now imagine if you will. When I went last year, I told you on patrol, I was 90 years old. Of course, I was a young guy then, I'm a little older now. But I went with them on patrol. They put body armor on me and gave me an M4 carbine, never asked any questions. In other words, I was one of the guys. Now that tells you something. It talks about the bond that's created between servicemen, certainly in the paratroopers and airborne. It is a bond that I call stronger than brotherhood. It's not biological, it's not generic, and it's one that you forge under most adverse conditions. When you look to each other for your well-being and for your security and for each other. And then I come along 60-some years later at FOB Salerno, and there wasn't anybody in that camp was even born when I was in the service, but that bond transcended generations. And that's fairly typical of our young men and women. And it mentioned that I've read the book. It's now in its 8th printing, been translated into Dutch, into German. I'll be signing books when I go out to Afghanistan, as I do when I'm with the troops. And the credit of my publisher, Random House, they mail the books out ahead of me, all gratis, and I'm there. And I see in our young troops today a real sense of devotion, dedication to the mission. And it is something that we can all be pretty proud of, the young men and women that we now have representing us. And so that's kind of my story. I'm here at the invitation, as you know, of Wiley X. I'm pleased with that because Wiley X is one of a number of contractors who are constantly trying to develop a product that will improve the safety and well-being of our troops. And I'm fortunate that I'm provided with their glasses, so if something happens, my eyes are protected. And so for all these reasons, I'm pleased to be here with the company that I have.